growing up, is racism something that you had to deal with personally? And is it triggering all of that you maybe once had to go through?
Um, yeah, here's that. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met a person of color, and particularly a Black man or a Black woman, who has not experienced racism directly, and not just even in systemic sense, but even personally direct one to one. And so I was taught that it was present. It was never something that was hidden. It was never something um, that was like in the dark to me. It was something I experienced. I watched others experience, and so it was what it was. And as a Black man or a Black woman or a person of color, you learn how to just navigate. And so I hate to say you get used to it, but the reality of it is you're used to it, and you're used to it in subtle ways. You're used to it in intentional ways and explicit ways, and you experience it. And so when people say, what are your experiences? Well, there are many. I think for me, as it relates to today's conversation in terms of our country, I was taught, first of all, my mom grew up in the South. I mean, she's a Mississippi born and raised woman. I was born in Mississippi, then grew up in LA. And so racism that she experienced was so blatant. And yeah, we were taught to respect authority. What your teacher said, what your pastor said, what your coach said, heck, what your bus driver said, any person of authority you respect. And I did, and I've always had that thought. And of course, there's always the thought of police brutality, racial profiling, et cetera, et cetera. And I think for me, my first personal experience with it was my freshman year in college. And to keep the story short, we were in two different cars. I was in one car with some friends, and there was this other car that pulled up next to us, and there were some frat guys that were all white. And this is at ASU. And, they were drunk, and the guy in the passenger seat kind of flipped off my buddy who was driving, and it wasn't a big deal. We pulled up to the next light, and my buddy gets out of the car, knocks on this guy's window, asks him to roll down his window, and the guy, not being very bright, rolled down his window, and my buddy punched him in the face. And I'm like, what are you doing? So I get out of the car to break it up, and there's a police car across the street. My buddy jumps in the car, he takes off, he leaves me there. So these guys get out of the car, and it's just me. I'm the only Black person there. The police officers come up, and it's two police officers. There's a male cop and a female cop. They're both white. And immediately they come to me and they cuff me. Now, mind you, I just had surgery on my shoulder 2 weeks before that, so I was in a sling. And here I am in handcuffs. And the guy is saying, no, he didn't do anything. He's the mediator. Like, he's the mediator. And he kept saying that. And the police officers telling them to be quiet. And so, long story short, when my buddies wrote back and said, hey, this is all my fault, and the guys didn't want to press any charges, and the police officer came, the female police officer who had not cuffed me came and she said, I'm sorry, and she uncuffed me. And I just said, how does a Black person not look at this as racist? You have four guys standing outside of a car, and then the guy comes over, the male police officer comes over, and he says, well, you look like the aggressor. And I said, I look like the aggressor, the guy in the sling, when everybody else here is saying that I'm not? And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And he said something to me, something smart, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. And yet, I don't know how, as a 19-year-old boy, even though you respect authority, and I do believe that, police officers are authority, government's authority, all of that, is going, how do I not look at that and go, hey, this has to be some sort of profiling? So, that's just one experience that I can't ever forget that. So is it re-triggering for me this time around? Honestly, it might be, and I just don't know it. I think this time around, I'm in a different spot. I'm in a different profession. I carried it way more last time because I felt like it was my job to get people, especially non-people of color, to understand the issues of a Black female or a Black male or people of color, or the language I tried to use, because it gets so triggering for even white people to hear it, is dominant culture versus subdominant culture. That's why you take the races out of it. There's such a thing as a dominant culture. The dominant culture is the way most of the world works. And usually what I tell people, if you don't know what I mean when I say dominant and subdominant culture, chances are you've only been swimming in the waters of the dominant culture. And the dominant culture does not have to swim in the waters of the subdominant culture. But the subdominant culture has no choice but to speak the king's language, so to say, because that's how you go to school, it's how you get a job, it's how you become successful, et cetera, et cetera. So what are the dynamics of the dominant culture and the subdominant culture? So I spent, 10 years plus of my entire pastoral ministry trying to get people to understand that and to get people groups to the table to be able to understand one another, where this time around it's different in the coaching shoes, but the same realities, the same pain, the same hurt, the same confusion. And yet the culture's response, though, by and large so far, has been massively different than that of 2016.
100%. So how do we get there as people? How do we get there? I mean, is this the start, the protest and all being together hand in hand? But also on the other side of that, the police, the brutality, where do we go from this? How do we get to be on the same page? How can we, everyone listening and watching, how can we make a difference?
So here's the thing. You just have to be Sandy, and you have to be Sandy to whatever individual is across from you. You know, you're limited in the same way that I'm limited. We're not infinite beings. We're just not. We're very finite. And you got to do what you can do, and do for one what you wish you can do for all. There's understanding the definitions and the differences between the word sympathy and empathy, and acknowledging sympathy. Like I see that you're in pain. Okay, that's an acknowledgement. I can send a sympathy card. And then there's empathy that says, okay, I kind of feel your pain, and that is as best as you can. You know what I mean? And then there's compassion. And compassion has that sense of going, not only do I see you're in pain and I acknowledge it, sympathy, and in some ways I try to empathize your pain and feel with you, empathy. Compassion says, and now I'm going to do whatever I can to try to end it. And that can only happen through relationship. It can only happen as the other person allows you in. And what I see in this situation is there are a lot of people of the dominant culture going, okay, I want to know what to do. I want to know what to do. And there's a lot out there for them to do. And some of the thought sometimes is like, you have to do something now, as opposed to sometimes you just need to be present and you'll understand what to do. Like I never learned how to be a father, right? Mm-hmm. But when I had a kid, I began to learn what it's like to father and what it's like to parent. Yeah, I can read all the books in the world, but until that kid is right in front of me and I'm present and I'm changing those diapers and I'm trying to bathe them and I'm trying to raise them, like, okay, I'm learning. This is on the job training. And there's moments when that kid doesn't want me to father him in the way that I want to father him. And even then, that's probably a bad illustration because it has this hierarchical, I'm the father, you're the child. There's got to be some sort of mutual level of going, I need to understand the other, if that makes sense. You know what? One of the things you learn really quick is you got to understand your limits. And I don't know what I don't know. Like, I don't know what's proper. I know something needs to happen. And I'm reading just like everybody else of going, what does it look like from a systemic standpoint when it comes to law enforcement? What does it look like for people? And then the reality of it is, like, I think it's going to be trial and error. And what I would tell people, like in your shoes, is there's going to be moments where you're going to go to try to be there for somebody and they're going to reject it. And you got to keep trying even when they reject it. Because and somehow keep it about them and about the other and not about yourself. And that's important. And I know sometimes people can go, well, I'm just exhausted. And what we would say in the subdominant culture is, man, we've been exhausted for a long time. And we're still trying to catch our breath. And so when we can't speak and give you the right words of what you can do, it's because you're talking to somebody who's bent over, hands on their knees. We're exhausted. And so let us catch our breath. In the meantime, maybe figure out ways to metaphorically get us water.
What has been your message to your players through all of this?
Well, it's unique because we're like in this unique experience with everybody's, I shouldn't say we're in a unique experience. I was kind of tone deaf. Given that the majority of our defensive staff came on at the end of January, and we had a little bit of time with the players before they went on spring break, and then the pandemic hit. Like, the most time we've had with them is via Zoom. And that's very interesting. But here's what I would say. And you see a lot of coaches alluding to this, like locker rooms are great. Locker rooms are great because, you know, you got people of different ethnicities. And that's true. But I want to be very clear. Just because people look different and come from different backgrounds and they come together for a common goal to win football games or baseball games or basketball games or whatever the sport may be, it doesn't mean that the same issues that are happening out in the world aren't also happening in the locker room. I liken it to a lot of times like something like mental health. You don't just see that somebody is struggling with depression or, you know, clinical anxiety or whatever that is they're struggling. You don't just look at that person and go, oh yeah, I know that. And the same way you could just look in the locker room and go, oh, there might be some systemic racist things here. And so I want to be very clear to go, locker rooms, though, can give you the context, because when you can come across the aisle to get to know the other, and likewise, man, there's something beautiful that happens in there. And I do think the sport of football in particular lends that, because you have social economic differences, you have ethnic differences, you have people coming from different parts of the country, all in the same room. And if you can be able to have those honest conversations, which thankfully Coach Norvell has allowed our players to have, you get to know the other in ways that is different than most other contexts. And so while I think it's amazing to have a locker room, I'm very clear to go, it doesn't mean that it's like all perfect. And that wasn't the case when I played, when I was in the locker room. And I don't believe it's the case now. People are different. And sometimes it takes work. It always takes work to understand the other in a way that they could be seen, in a way that they could be heard.
How do we as media, and you as a coach, how do we support these Black athletes, women, because we cover women and men, yours, of course, the football team. How do we support them? What should we be doing?
Sandy, I think that's a question for you to answer since you're in the media. Remember, limits. I do think that like trying to just get rid of stereotypes as best as possible, and letting a person be a person, whether it's a male or a female, Black or white, just letting them express who they are as opposed to assuming. Because there are certain things that media does and they don't realize it. And I don't want to say media in some pejorative sense, you know, but if I said something like, I always tell my son this too. If I tell my son who plays quarterback, my oldest son who plays quarterback, if I say, if a person is saying this quarterback is, man, he's such a smart quarterback. He makes incredible decisions. He's cerebral. He makes every throw. I mean, he's a leader. I mean, you want this guy in the team. He's like a player's coach on the field. Give me, what color skin do you think that person has? He's going to say white. Now, what if I said this? I mean, this guy's a raw athlete. He's got a lot of talent. I mean, he's fast. He can make anybody. I mean, at any moment, he can throw an 80-yard touchdown or he can run an 80-yard touchdown. I mean, you just don't see this sort of athleticism out there. Okay, what are we talking about here? You know, he's a pocket passer, white. Man, he's really good outside the pocket. He can create with his feet and his left. And it's like, okay, just realize the stereotypes that are saying, not like as if Steve Young couldn't create out of the pocket and throw the ball down the field. And nor could you see someone like a Dante Culpepper sit in the pocket and throw the ball at 80 down the field, you know? And so I just use quarterback as an example because you do hear it.